The year was 1996. A young man stepped into a world that would either make him or break him. He had the pedigree, the look, the athleticism. But something was missing, something that couldn't be taught in any wrestling school or passed down through bloodlines. Then came the transformation. The smile disappeared. The pretty boy persona died. And from those ashes rose something the wrestling world had never seen before. This is the story of 5 quotes that didn't just entertain crowds. They rewrote the very DNA of sports entertainment. Quote 1. If you smell what The Rock is cooking. Picture this. Madison Square Garden, 1998. 20,000 people on their feet. The arena lights dimming just enough to create that electric atmosphere. The music hits, and before The Rock even appears, you can feel the building shake. But tonight is different. Tonight, he's about to deliver a line that will echo through wrestling history for the next 25 years. As he raises that microphone, pausing with perfect timing, the crowd knows something special is coming. The silence is deafening. Then, with the confidence of a man who owns every soul in that building, if you smell what The Rock is cooking, it wasn't just a catchphrase. It was a declaration. Spoken at the end of nearly every promo from 1998 onward, this line became The Rock's signature. Whether he was standing over a fallen opponent or cutting a promo in the middle of the ring, this phrase was his stamp of approval, his way of saying class dismissed. What made this line genius wasn't the words themselves, it was the psychology behind them. The Rock was telling you that something incredible had just happened, and you were lucky enough to witness it. The pause between if you smell and what The Rock built anticipation like a master chef letting the aroma fill the room before revealing the main course. The phrase played on our senses. Wrestling is visual, it's auditory, but The Rock made it aromatic. He didn't just want you to see his dominance or hear his trash talk. He wanted you to smell his success. This catchphrase emerged during The Rock's transition from the failed Rocky Maivia character to his breakout heel persona. In real life, Dwayne was finding his real voice for the first time, mixing his natural charisma with the arrogance needed to get heat from the crowd. The cooking metaphor wasn't random. It connected to his idea that every promo, every match, every moment was him preparing something special for the audience. The line became so synonymous with The Rock that even people who never watched wrestling knew it. It transcended sports entertainment, appearing in movies, commercials, and pop culture references decades later. More importantly, it established the template for how a catchphrase should work, not just as a slogan, but as the exclamation point on a performance. What I love about this quote is how it turned The Rock into a conductor of crowd energy. The moment people heard those opening words, they knew they were about to be part of something special. It wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a promise that whatever just happened was worth remembering. 25 years later, we're still smelling what The Rock was cooking back then. And the recipe? Pure, unfiltered charisma that turned a wrestling catchphrase into a cultural phenomenon. Quote 2, know your role and shut your mouth. The arena is hostile. The crowd is split. Stone Cold Steve Austin stands across the ring, ready for war, and the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. This is 1999, the height of the Attitude Era, where every promo could start a riot, and every word carried the weight of a loaded gun. The Rock grabs the microphone, his eyes never leaving Austin's. The crowd knows what's coming. They can feel it building like a storm on the horizon. Then, with the cold precision of a man who has never been more sure of anything in his life, know your role and shut your mouth. This wasn't just trash talk directed at Stone Cold, Triple H, or whoever happened to be in The Rock's crosshairs that week. This was his philosophy distilled into 7 words. Spoken with venom and delivered with the timing of a master comedian, this line became The Rock's way of putting people in their place. The brilliance of this quote lies in its hierarchy. Know your role. That's The Rock telling you that there's an order to things, a natural pecking order, and you're not at the top. And shut your mouth. That's him cutting off any argument before it starts. It wasn't just an insult, it was a complete dismissal of your right to even respond. The psychology here is masterful. The Rock positioned himself as the authority figure, the one who decides who gets to speak and when. It was verbal dominance wrapped in a catchphrase. This line emerged during The Rock's heel turn when he needed to establish himself as someone who demanded respect, not someone who earned it through likability. In real life, Dwayne was learning to tap into a more aggressive side of his personality, channeling the confidence he needed to stand toe-to-toe with established stars like Austin and The Undertaker. The line became a weapon, Every time The Rock delivered it, it felt like a slap across the face of whoever was on the receiving end. It established him as someone who didn't just beat you in the ring, he mentally dismantled you first. The crowd would erupt because they knew someone had just been verbally destroyed. This quote shows The Rock's understanding of power dynamics. In wrestling, physical dominance isn't enough. You need to control the narrative. By telling people to know their role, he positioned himself as the director of the show and everyone else as supporting characters. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, The Rock mastered the art of telling people when they didn't deserve to speak. And somehow, we loved him for it. Quote 3. It doesn't matter what your name is. Imagine you're a wrestler standing in that ring, 20,000 people watching, millions more at home. You've worked your entire life for this moment. You grab the microphone, you're about to introduce yourself, to tell the world who you are. And then The Rock snatches that dream away with 5 words that cut deeper than any finishing move. This is the story of the most devastating interruption in wrestling history. It doesn't matter what your name is. This wasn't just a catchphrase, it was a power move disguised as entertainment. Whenever an opponent tried to introduce themselves or make a point, The Rock would cut them off mid-sentence with this line, often followed by the crowd chanting along. It happened to everyone from main event stars to complete unknowns. The genius of this line is in its complete dismissal of identity. In wrestling, your name is everything. It's your brand, your legacy, your connection to the fans. The Rock took that away. He didn't just interrupt you, he made your very existence irrelevant. The crowd participation element made it even more destructive. When 20,000 people chant "It doesn't matter" at you, you're not just being dismissed by The Rock, you're being erased by an entire arena. This line came from The Rock's heel period when he needed to generate heat quickly and efficiently. Rather than spending time crafting individual insults for each opponent, he created a universal weapon that worked on anyone, anywhere, anytime. It was wrestling psychology at its most efficient. The line became so over that even when The Rock turned face, crowds still popped for it. It established him as someone who could control not just his opponents, but the entire arena. When The Rock said your name didn't matter, for those few seconds, it really didn't. What I find interesting about this quote is how it turned interruption into an art form. The Rock didn't just cut people off, he made the interruption more entertaining than whatever they were going to say. He turned rudeness into charisma. In a business built on larger-than-life personalities, The Rock found a way to make everyone else feel smaller. And the most impressive part? We thanked him for it. Quote 4. Rudy Poo Candy Ass. The year is 1999. Wrestling is at its creative peak, pushing boundaries and redefining what entertainment can be. In this environment, where every superstar is trying to outshock and outperform each other, The Rock does something unexpected. He makes nonsense sound cool. Standing in that ring, with his signature smirk and that microphone in his hand, he's about to prove that charisma can turn even the most ridiculous words into poetry. Rudy Poo Candy Ass. This wasn't a line saved for special occasions. This was The Rock's go-to insult, thrown at anyone who crossed his path. From Steve Austin to The Big Show, from local jobbers to main event players, if you were in The Rock's way, you were a Rudy Poo Candy Ass. Let's be honest, this makes no sense. Rudy Poo isn't a real insult. It sounds like something a child would say on a playground. But that was the point. The Rock took meaningless words and delivered them with such conviction, such rhythm, such perfect comedic timing, that they became destructive. The phrase worked because of how he said it, not what it meant. The emphasis on Rudy, the pause before poo, the way Candy Ass rolled off his tongue, it was pure performance art. This line represents The Rock's growing confidence in his ability to make anything work through sheer force of personality. In real life, Dwayne was discovering that his natural comedic timing could turn even the most absurd material into gold. It was a preview of the movie star charisma that would later conquer Hollywood. The fact that a nonsense insult became one of wrestling's most memorable lines proves The Rock's power as a performer. Crowds would chant it, wrestlers would reference it, and it became part of wrestling's lexicon despite meaning absolutely nothing. This quote shows The Rock's understanding that in entertainment, delivery is everything. He could have called people anything, but he chose something that sounded funny and memorable. It wasn't about being clever, it was about being unforgettable. In a world obsessed with making sense, The Rock proved that sometimes the best insults are the ones that don't mean anything at all. Pure charisma can turn gibberish into gold. Quote 5. I'm gonna take that title. shine it up real nice. Turn that sumbitch sideways and stick it straight up your candy ass. Picture The Rock standing in that ring, eyes locked on his opponent, the WWE Championship glinting under the arena lights. Whether it's around someone else's waist or sitting on a table nearby, that gold represents everything: power, prestige, the right to call yourself the best. The crowd senses what's coming. The Rock's jaw tightens, his grip on the microphone firm. Then he delivers a threat so specific, so vivid, that it doesn't just promise violence, it turns the promise of violence into poetry. I'm gonna take that title, shine it up real nice, turn that sumbitch sideways and stick it straight up your candy ass. This was The Rock's ultimate threat, delivered to champions and challengers alike when the stakes were highest. Whether aimed at Triple H, The Big Show, or even Vince McMahon himself, this line meant business was about to be settled. This quote is a masterclass in escalation. It starts almost gently. Take that title, shine it up real nice, like he's talking about polishing a trophy. Then comes the turn. Turn that sumbitch sideways. The vulgarity hits like a slap. Finally, the finish. Stick it straight up your candy ass. Violence wrapped in his signature insult. The rhythm is perfect. The build-up, the pause, the explosive finish. It's a promo within a promo. A complete story told in one sentence. This line emerged during The Rock's most personal feuds when kayfabe blurred with real intensity. The specificity of the threat, not just "I'll beat you," but exactly how he'd use the championship belt as a weapon, showed a creative mind that understood the power of vivid imagery. This quote became The Rock's nuclear option. When he delivered this line, everyone knew the feud had reached its peak. It was his way of saying that winning the match wasn't enough. He wanted to humiliate his opponent in the most creative way possible. What makes this quote special is how it combines The Rock's trademark humor with genuine menace. He could make you laugh and intimidate you in the same breath. It's a perfect example of why he was the complete package as a performer. 25 years later, this line still represents everything The Rock brought to wrestling: creativity, intensity, perfect timing, and the ability to turn a simple threat into an unforgettable moment. It wasn't just about what he was going to do, it was about how memorably he was going to do it. These weren't just quotes. They were weapons, tools, pieces of art crafted by a man who understood that in wrestling, what you say can be just as destructive as what you do. The Rock didn't just talk trash, he elevated trash talk to an art form. Every insult was poetry, every threat was theater, every catchphrase was a reason to tune in next week. In an era defined by attitude and aggression, The Rock proved that the most powerful force in wrestling wasn't a steel chair or a finishing move. It was a man with a microphone who knew exactly what to do with it. These 5 quotes built more than a character. They built a legend. And even now, decades later, when we hear these words, we don't just remember The Rock. We remember exactly how it felt to be electrified.